What if the most dangerous part of a market crash isn't the falling numbers on a screen, but the story you tell yourself while you watch them fall? It's a story with two competing narrators. One is the ancient primal part of your brain, screaming that the sky is falling, that you have to sell everything right now to salvage what's left. The other is a quieter, more rational voice, whispering the old adages you've heard 1,000 times. Be greedy when others are fearful. This too shall pass. In the middle of that storm, with news anchors shouting about catastrophe and your life savings evaporating in real time, which voice do you listen to? This isn't a theoretical question. I've lived through it 3 times. The dot-com bubble bursting in 2000, the great financial crisis of 2008, and the lightning-fast COVID crash of 2020. Each was a trial by fire, a real-world test of strategy versus instinct. Each one presented the same fundamental choice: join the panic or find the opportunity. The common belief is that the difference is simply a matter of courage, but it's far more complex than that. In this video, we are going to dissect those 3 moments. We won't just talk about what to buy or sell. We're going to deconstruct the anatomy of financial panic itself. We will explore the hidden psychological traps your own mind sets for you, and by the end, reveal the mental framework that separates those who are destroyed by market crashes from those who are defined by them. The most common piece of advice you will hear about a market crash is a quote from Warren Buffett: "Be greedy when others are fearful." It's simple, it's memorable, and it sounds profound. We imagine the master investor calmly buying up assets at a discount while the rest of the world loses its mind. The myth is that surviving a crash is an act of contrarian aggression. You just have to have the guts to click buy when everyone else is clicking sell. The initial evidence seems to support this. We see the charts after the fact, the V-shaped recovery in 2020, the long grinding climb after 2008. The data proves, unequivocally, that buying at the bottom was the right move. So the playbook seems obvious. Wait for the panic, then go shopping. But if the answer is so simple, why do so many people get it catastrophically wrong? Why does the average investor's portfolio consistently underperform the market itself? Because we're missing a crucial first step. The simple advice ignores the brutal reality of human nature. Before you can even think about being greedy, you first have to survive your own fear. And that fear is a far more powerful force than most of us are willing to admit. To understand this, we need to look at our decision-making through the lens of behavioral economics, specifically a concept called loss aversion. First identified by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, loss aversion is the principle that, for humans, the psychological pain of losing is about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining. Losing $100 hurts far more than finding $100 feels good. During a market crash, you aren't just watching numbers on a screen go down. You are experiencing a cascade of powerful, painful losses day after day. Your brain, hardwired for survival over millennia, doesn't interpret this as a temporary market dislocation. It interprets it as a direct threat. It triggers the same fight-or-flight response you'd have if a predator were chasing you. And in that state, rational, long-term thinking is physiologically impossible. Every time you open your brokerage account and see the sea of red, you are actively dosing yourself with pain, reinforcing the panic. So the first, most common action people take, obsessively checking their portfolio, isn't staying informed. It's a form of self-inflicted psychological torture. What looks like due diligence is actually a mechanism for accelerating your own panic. And we realize the first critical truth: the battle is not with the market. It is with the ancient, irrational wiring inside your own head. If this is true, then the greatest mistake an investor can make is not selling at the bottom. The greatest mistake is having no system in place before the panic begins. And I learned this the hard way. During the 2008 financial crisis, the story was different. This wasn't a tech bubble bursting. This was the global financial system itself seemingly on the brink of collapse. Banks weren't just stocks. They were institutions we thought were as permanent as mountains. Watching them fail one by one triggered a delusion unique to every major crisis. The feeling that, this time, it's different, that the old rules no longer apply. This single thought is the most destructive idea in all of investing. It is the permission slip your brain writes to abandon a perfectly good long-term plan in favor of short-term emotional reaction. The impact is catastrophic. It doesn't just lead to selling at the worst possible time, it leads to a state of complete paralysis. You're too scared to sell, too scared to buy. You just watch, frozen, as your financial future crumbles. If your instincts are a trap and your emotions are a liability, then what are you supposed to rely on? To answer that, we have to go to the source of the paralysis itself. This isn't a modern problem, this is a human problem. From the Dutch tulip mania in the 1600s, where people traded their homes for a single flower bulb, to the roaring 20s that led to the Great Depression, the pattern is identical. A period of euphoria convinces us that prices can only go up, followed by a sudden crash that convinces us they will never recover. We are pattern recognition machines, but we are terrible at understanding exponential growth and the true scale of time. We suffer from recency bias, believing that what happened yesterday will happen again tomorrow. When the market is crashing, our brain projects that straight line down into infinity. We forget that market history is a story of fires, floods, wars, and pandemics, and through it all, the trajectory of human innovation has been relentlessly upward. But you can't feel that long-term trend when you're in the middle of the short-term storm. And to survive it, you need an anchor. You need a system built during a time of calm that you can execute automatically during a time of chaos. For me, that meant building the system I would later use in 2020. But I know what some of you are thinking. Forget all this psychology. Just buy the dip. That's what the pros do, and that's the bottom line. It's the ultimate counter-argument. It seems to cut through all the noise and get straight to the profitable action. And on the surface, it's not wrong. But we need to deconstruct that action. The virtue is not in the act of buying itself, but in the reason for buying. If you rebuying because you see everyone else panicking and you feel a rush of FOMO, a fear of missing out on the bottom, are you really being strategic? Or are you just succumbing to a different kind of emotion? Greed, masquerading as logic. Blindly buying the dip without a plan is just the other side of the same coin as panic selling. It's a reaction, not a strategy. What appears to be a disciplined, contrarian move is often just another emotional decision. In fact, true discipline isn't about making a heroic all-in purchase at what you hope is the bottom. True discipline is about making a series of unemotional, pre-planned decisions, regardless of how you feel. We discover a second, more subtle truth. Even your greatest perceived virtue can be a servant to your greatest emotional flaw. So let's assemble the full picture. The market begins to fall. Your natural loss aversion kicks in, triggering a primal fear response. This fear creates the illusion that this time is different, which gives you permission to abandon your long-term plan. You are then faced with two equally tempting emotion-driven choices: panic sell to make the pain stop, or FOMO buy to catch the bottom. Both are reactions. Both are likely wrong. The real point of failure, the breaking point, isn't a percentage drop in the S&P 500. It's the moment your disciplined system collapses and your emotional storytelling brain takes over. It's the moment you stop being an investor and start being a gambler. Now that we understand the machine of failure that lives inside all of us, what does the system for succeeding actually look like? What did I actually do in 2008 and 2020 that was different from 2000? The answer changes everything.